Meltdown. Now, it's the understanding of the Mark Dolan show that Sarah Ferguson is in an incredibly dark place, feeling, and I quote, isolated, overwhelmed with anxiety, and in a deep, deep depression. Now, we're hearing that she's even sought medical advice, such is her mental state. Of course, we've got huge sympathy. She's going through absolute hell. Now, Fergie, as she's known, has had a tumultuous life, comprised of endless money problems, family drama, battles with her weight, a full-on eating disorder, damaging relationships with men, scandal, corruption, and a financially motivated friendship with the disgraced Jeffrey Epstein, whose crimes are too serious to describe on a family show. So she's had an eventful life and she's had a tough life. Some of it she's brought on herself. Some of it has been visited on her by some of the men around her. But this is an all-time low, as the former Duchess, one of the most colourful members of the royal family, particularly with that shock of ginger hair, is now in despair about her future, as she and her ex-husband Prince Andrew, with whom, by the way, she's still on good terms, face eviction from the 30-room Royal Lodge. Fergie doesn't know where she's going to live. She's got no idea what's going to happen to her money, her charity, her businesses, and she may become homeless. She doesn't have a roof over her head in the long term. Now, Sarah Ferguson is a very damaged individual, and those close to her are deeply worried for her well-being. My sources say that she's in a dark place, crippled with anxiety, and has reached out to doctors. Well, this is backed up by the brilliant Rebecca English, the royal editor of the Daily Mail newspaper, who reports exactly the same story in regard to the Duchess of York, the ex-Duchess of York. She says that those close to Sarah Ferguson say she's barely holding it together. That's a direct quote from the Mail insider. Barely holding it together. After months of tense discussions about her and Prince Andrew's future, friends are describing the Duchess as on the edge, anxious, exhausted, and unsure where she's going to live if the couple are finally forced out of Royal Lodge, their Windsor home since 2008. Let me tell you, let me be perfectly clear that they are leaving the Royal Lodge. That is a non-starter. That is a enormous 30-room estate in Windsor, which was redecorated and renovated by the late Queen Mother, the mother of Queen Elizabeth II. There's no way that Andrew and Sarah will be allowed to stay in this massive, massive house. Sarah's got her own wing. It's extraordinary. They have entire sections of the house to themselves, even though it is my understanding that Sarah and Andrew are close and that they have a full relationship and that they're intimate. That's what I'm told. Don't shoot the messenger, but there is goodwill and there is some evidence that they have a full relationship. I've got to say, let me know in the comments, I don't think it will be the worst thing in the world for Andrew and Sarah Ferguson to remarry. Let me know in the comments. I think if there is goodwill between them, and obviously they've got a history and two lovely girls, and if there is an ongoing attraction, which I've heard there is, I think they should remarry and find a really, really small property, a sort of 3 or 4 bedroom house, and live a simple existence and enjoy an enforced early retirement. That's what they should do. But unfortunately, these royals have got no common sense, and they are in a bitter and vicious battle with King Charles to get significantly better accommodation. But the Royal Lodge is a non-starter. You heard it here first. It is a matter of if, not when, Sarah and Andrew are evicted. It's a non-starter. It's right next door to the Forest Lodge, which is William and Catherine's forever home, and will likely be William and Catherine's residence when they are king and queen. You cannot have the king and queen living in this smaller house, which is the Forest Lodge, with the disgraced Prince Andrew living next door, partying like it's 1999. Oh, isn't it ironic? I'm not even king, I'm just Prince Andrew. I'm an absolute disgrace and I've got a bigger house than the monarch. Oh, and more girlfriends. You're welcome. So that's not going to happen, right? Forget about it. Forget about it, as they say in New York. It ain't going to happen. They're going to be out of the Royal Lodge, but this is putting Sarah through absolute hell. According to insiders, Sarah and Andrew, who are working very much as a team, have explored a plan that would see them living separately for the first time in nearly 2 decades. Now, this is not a parting of the ways. It doesn't mean they've fallen out and don't have an affection for each other. It's because they've both got such massive egos that they think they need their own house. And at the moment, the way it is with the Royal Lodge, if you've got your own wing, that is your own house. So Sarah's had, the run of 50% of that property for all those years, and Andrew the same. And by the way, God knows what's been happening in Andrew's wing. But I would imagine that it's pretty disgusting what's been going on. All the female visitors that he's had, all the entertainment, all the parties. What a decidedly unpleasant and unsavory man he is. Anyhow, so according to insiders, Sarah and Andrew are trying to have 2 houses. These people are so greedy. They're in a house which is much, 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 much too big. So their solution, their compromise is fine. We'll leave the much too big house and you can give us 2 houses instead. No! They can go into a little apartment. They can go into a bungalow. They can go into a wooden shack for all I care, because they've been sponging off the British taxpayer for years now. Anyhow, so here's what's happening. Andrew, we're told, will take Frogmore Cottage, which of course was the home of Harry and Meghan, my husband. Frogmore Cottage, by the way, what a cursed property that is. The fact that it has accommodated Harry and Meghan, who are such a needy and demanding couple, who insisted that the British taxpayer renovate Frogmore Cottage to the tune of $2 million, which at the time, when they were serving royals, was going to come from the public purse. The British taxpayer paid for the renovations of Frogmore Cottage, but it wasn't good enough for Meghan, who is completely entitled, and she resented the fact that Frogmore Cottage was so much smaller than the accommodation of William and Catherine. Well, I'm so sorry about that, Meghan, but that's what happens when your brother-in-law is the next in line to the throne. You see, that's the royal family. It's a hierarchy. Now, you married some idiot called Harry, who's the spare. I'm the world's least happy millionaire. You see? And what Catherine did, she married the guy that was going to become king, so she gets a bigger house. Meghan, she gets a bigger house because her husband's going to be king, so when your husband's going to be king, you get a bigger house. It's kind of a monarchy thing. Yeah? So, but Meghan didn't get that. So Meghan resented the fact that Frogmore Cottage was smaller than the accommodation of William and Catherine. Well, tough luck. Now, that's the way it goes. Anyhow, so they then went to America. Hilariously, Harry, who's a terrible businessman, had to write a check for $2 million because when he ceased to be a serving royal, he wasn't able to justify the cost to the British taxpayer of the renovations to Frogmore, so he had to pay up, which is hilarious because he was not planning to write a check for $2 million for Meghan's fancy carpets and wallpaper and expensive paint, which still wasn't good enough. Because if you gave Meghan the earth, she'd only ask for the moon. She's that sort of character. Anyhow, so that's fine. So Frogmore is tainted with Harry and Meghan having lived there, and it wasn't good enough for them, even though it's the house of anyone else's dreams. Then they're going to have Andrew there. When Andrew finally passes, good luck selling that property. Imagine being the realtor, the estate agent, going, yes, this house used to have the disgraced, I don't even want to go there, philanderer, Prince Andrew, who had a lot of parties in here and took pictures with women with his hands around their naked midriff. Yuck. And then before that, Harry and Meghan and their, completely self-indulgent stint in the property. You couldn't give it away. Former residents. You only need Ted Bundy to have lived there for a year, right? Serial killer Ted Bundy. Maybe Joseph Fritzl built a basement in that house. It would be less popular. But the bottom line is that Andrew wants Frogmore. And then wildly, Sarah Ferguson, Fergie's got her eye on Adelaide Cottage. Now, she's entitled to nothing. Don't get me wrong. I'm worried about her mental health. I'm worried that we're hearing she's in a dark, dark place and crippled with anxiety and worried about the future. I don't want her on the streets, living in a tent city in central London. Of course not. I wish her well. She's had a hard life. And to paraphrase Shakespeare, I consider her to be more sinned against than sinning. She's another damaged person from a chaotic childhood and a chaotic private life. So, but, that's all well and good. That's fine. She might have had a bumpy life. But she's brought a lot of this on herself with her greed and her arrogance and her desire to live beyond her means. And she does not deserve to go to Adelaide Cottage, which is the current home of William and Catherine. Are you out of your tiny mind? Are you on the same level as William and Catherine, Sarah Ferguson, that you're going to live in their house? Even Andrew has more of a right to live there, given the fact that he's the brother of the king. So reports suggest that Sarah and Andrew demanded 2 houses, and it's infuriated palace officials. So obviously they're under pressure. They're going to leave the lodge. They will leave the lodge. They will be out. They've been there for 15 years, by the way. It's wild. They themselves divorced in 1996, but reunited under one roof at the Royal Lodge in 2008. I think it's quite sweet. I like it when people divorce and are still good friends and then rekindle, which is what I'm hearing has intermittently happened with Andrew and Sarah. I think it's quite sweet. And there's no doubt that the two of them did marry for love. Very unusual for royals. They were in love with each other and they were in lust with each other, and they had a lot of fun for the first few months. The issue was that Andrew's in the Navy. He was always away. Sarah Ferguson's a very broken, damaged, demanding individual, and she couldn't cope on her own. And, you know, the spotlight, royal life. She's not a natural princess. She's very oafish. She's clumsy. She's not sophisticated. So it wasn't perfect. It didn't work out. It wasn't meant to be. But I find it very sweet that they're, you know, still so close. But what I will say is they don't have a right to be in enormous different houses. That's probably worse. I think 2 houses that are separate, that's actually worse than the Royal Lodge. So yeah, they're looking for this deal. Sources close to the negotiations say Andrew requested Frogmore, yes, and Fergie wants Adelaide Cottage, which is fine. Now, if accepted, the plan would see the ex-spouses living apart for the first time in nearly 2 decades, but still within walking distance of each other, so they can still keep things kindling along. Do you think that Andrew and Sarah should marry? Because I think they should, and I think it would rehabilitate Prince Andrew. I think they should marry and live in a simple apartment, maybe in Sandringham. By the way, they can have an apartment. I think that the maximum number of bedrooms they need is 3, because you've got the master bedroom and then you've got 2 guest bedrooms, which is where the daughters can stay when they visit, Beatrice and Eugenie. I'm still in love with you, oh shooting star. The proposal, effectively 2 grace and favour homes in exchange for 1, has been greeted with disbelief inside royal circles. And one royal insider described the idea as tone deaf and delusional, whilst veteran royal expert Richard Fitzwilliams, who's a brilliant journalist and a good friend of mine, called it a fantasy that shows how detached from reality they have become. He added, if they think this will solve anything, they're living in a weird fantasy world. The king won't agree to it, and the public will be outraged if he did. Behind the scenes, courtiers have dubbed the operation Yorksit, a bit like Megxit, a managed retreat intended to close one of the most embarrassing chapters in modern royal history. So Charles is trying to get Andrew out. Charles, this is a nightmare for Charles. Has this man not suffered enough? He's had his spoiled brat son, Harry, fly off to the United States and write a horrible book about the family and call the royals a bunch of racists on the Oprah Winfrey interview. Then his beautiful, stunning, perfect daughter-in-law, Catherine, gets cancer. Then he gets cancer. And he's got all his... And then the Epstein stuff and Sarah Ferguson and then Andrew. I mean, how much more is going to be thrown at this guy? And all of this scandal is going to taint and define and derail his reign as king. Charles waited decades to become king, thanks to the robust good health of Queen Elizabeth, who just carried on, which is a wonderful thing. I'm so glad she did. But it was tough for Charles because he probably could like to have been king when he was maybe 55. That'd be a nice age. 55, you become king. You've got wisdom and you've got energy. 55. And I said, mid-70s, you're ready for your pipe and slippers at that point. It's too little too late. So he's waited to become the king. I think he's doing a great job, but all he's had is problem. None of it self-inflicted, all because of his idiotic family members. So what's happened here is that now his brother and the Royal Lodge, this is the biggest issue. I think most people will accept that Prince Andrew probably stays prince. I mean, I'd like an Act of Parliament, so he's just Andrew, but I don't think it's going to happen in the near future. But the optics of Andrew living in this enormous house are a huge problem. But the issue you've got is that they've got to be careful with Sarah Ferguson. Because really, if you're the king, you need to find a solution for her. Because she's a loose cannon. She needs money. And she's already published 2 autobiographies, one in 1996, another in 2011. Sarah could run off to HarperCollins. She's close to Rupert Murdoch, who is, of course, a media magnate. I like Sarah Ferguson. I think she's a lively character. I've always admired women with red hair. Is it my imagination, or are women with red hair more fiery and more aggressive, more mercurial? And I like that in a woman. I like red-haired women. And I'm Rupert Murdoch. And I've invested a lot of money over years. I'd invest in an autobiography from Sarah Ferguson, Fergie, as I like to call her. She could run off to HarperCollins or Penguin Random House, and she would make millions. The reason why, she's written 2 autobiographies, but they were basically boring royal tomes, which did not put a cat among the pigeons. If she is rendered homeless by King Charles, and if Andrew doesn't support her and burns his bridges with his ex-wife, she will make millions. I mean, how much? Because don't forget, she knows where the bodies are buried. She would reveal all about Andrew. She would reveal all about Epstein. She would reveal all about Charles and Diana, because she was close to Diana, of course, when they were both serving royals. So she knows where the bodies are buried, and she will if she falls, she'll take everyone down with her. And I think she could quite easily accrue a figure of 10, 15, $20 million for Fergie, My Story. And of course, that's Andrew's worst nightmare, and it's Charles's worst nightmare, because Andrew's no angel and Charles is no angel too. And I think that Sarah's book would make Spare by Prince Harry look like kindergarten stuff. I promise you, it would be so explosive, and she would have no reason not to spill the beans. And it would, of course, fix her financial problems for the rest of her life. She'd be so happy. So they can't let that happen, which is why they're certain that they'll have to come up with a solution for Sarah Ferguson. Will it be Adelaide Cottage? I doubt it, but she'll get something. She'll get a house, and Andrew will get a house. This is my house. This is where I live. The Duchess's friends, though, say that she's absolutely bereft. I mean, this is where our sources, Daily Mail, The Express, The Mirror, we're all hearing the same thing. All roads lead to Sarah being in a dark place, and I am genuinely worried about her. Friends are saying she's bereft after years and years of bad headlines. Her own reputation, of course, dragged back into the Epstein controversy, following the leak of an email in which she apologised to Epstein and called him her supreme friend. There are also reports that she repeatedly sought his help. But she needed Epstein for money. And one ally said she's mortified. She knows the scandal has poisoned her business projects. Publishers and sponsors have backed away. Well, they absolutely have. No one's going to do business with Sarah Ferguson. No charities want to be involved. But I've got to tell you, she would sell the book. I'd buy that book and I'd make millions. And I know how to make millions because I'm Rupert Murdoch and it's in my DNA to make millions. It's what I do. I'm Rupert Murdoch, one of the greatest living Australians. You're welcome. Despite the King's personal kindness during Sarah Ferguson's battles with breast and skin cancer, palace patience, we're hearing, is wearing thin. And a quote, again to the Daily Mail, was, "Charles is compassionate," one insider told the paper, "but even his goodwill has limits. What he doesn't want is another Spare situation." Well, that's what we're saying, isn't it? For Andrew, any move would be a downgrade. Frogmore Cottage, a 5-bedroom home within Windsor's security perimeter, is charming but modest compared to the Royal Lodge, which has got sweeping lawns and a ballroom. Oh yeah, I love dancing with the girls in the ballroom. Hundreds and hundreds of girls. I don't know how old they are. Maybe I should ask for their passport photo just to double check. Can't be too safe, you know. Oh! Adelaide Cottage, which is what Sarah wants. I mean, you know what? Let me tell you something. Let me say just this. If Fergie gets Adelaide Cottage, then that means that Charles is running scared. If she gets Adelaide Cottage, that means that she has got more information on the royal family than you can shake a stick at. That means that she is sitting on a nuclear bomb. And if Adelaide Cottage is the only way to silence Ferguson and stop her running over to Sydney, Australia, having dinner with Rupert Murdoch and doing the deal, I'll write the cheque myself. I like that. I'm kind of hands-on anyway. That would be very indicative and fascinating. Whatever the solution is, it will tell you about the power balance within the royal family, and lots of people have power. So we shall see. Fergie wants to be near Andrew. He wants to be near her as well. You've got enough space for family visits. Both are Crown estate properties, which means that they would be safe. And I think that's important, by the way, because yes, I'm furious with Andrew, but he remains the king's brother. He's a target for all sorts of bad people, and therefore he should be safe. I know he's an idiot, but I don't want him taken out by a dreadful, evil human being. Sources suggest negotiations over the Andrew, and they keep calling them the Yorks. They're not the Yorks anymore, but Andrew and Fergie. Negotiations over their housing are well advanced, though far from settled. The truth, said one longtime friend, is that Sarah doesn't know where she'll land. If Andrew loses Royal Lodge, she's got nowhere to go and no one to go with. She risks becoming destitute. Her future is, and I quote, hanging by a thread. Love hurts so much. Love heals the scars. So, a royal expert who's spoken to one of Sarah's friends, and this is something we reported just recently on the Mark Dolan show, and this is Phil Dampier, who also stands up the story that Ferguson is not in good shape. And he says she's on the edge of an actual full nervous breakdown. He said, I can reveal her older sister Jane has flown over from Australia to comfort her in the UK. Speaking to Woman's Day magazine, Phil Dampier, who's a great royal journalist, said Sarah is in a bad way and it's hardly surprising. She needed support and her sister Jane has been there for her when she needed it. She and Andrew know that they're to blame, but they still feel they're now being kicked mercilessly when they're down. It's difficult to see what the future holds. Now, I'll tell you something that's a great credit to Andrew, and I'll say that with a heavy heart because he's a fool. But he has apparently given his brother, Charles, a personal assurance that he will never publish a tell-all memoir, a symbolic gesture meant to calm nerves after fears that he might go rogue if forced out. The pledge is viewed inside the palace as an olive branch, but not enough to keep him in the Royal Lodge, but certainly enough for Charles to find a satisfactory property for him. And do you know what? Fair play to Andrew. Andrew has voluntarily relinquished his Duke of York title and membership of the Order of the Garter. And now we're understanding and we're hearing that he won't write a tell-all book. And that tells me that it's ironic, isn't it? For all of his many indiscretions, Andrew has never done anything to proactively damage the royal family, unlike Harry, which in a weird way makes Harry worse. Harry's worse! Harry's worse than Andrew. Because Harry sat there writing that book Spare. Well, he didn't write He didn't write it. Because Harry doesn't do sentences. Okay? He probably sketched out a couple of ideas with a crayon, with his tongue out. You know when people are not that bright, and then when they're concentrating, the tongue pops out. I'm going to write a couple of chapters of my book now. Do you mind if I do it in pictures and then you do the words? Harry sat down and wrote, or at least paid someone to write the book Spare. Well, we know who it was written by. We know who wrote Spare. My husband. Didn't you know I'm not Meghan Markle anymore? I'm Meghan Sussex. I like Princess Catherine. Princess Catherine is my friend. Upon her, I wish no harm. So, it's completely wild, right? Daily talks between the Duke's representatives. He's not the Duke anymore. Prince Andrew's representative. But this is my point, right? Andrew's relinquished these titles, but Harry sat down and literally conceived and published a book and then did the Netflix documentary in which Meghan mocked Queen Elizabeth. These are all much worse things than Prince Andrew has done. Andrew's never done anything proactively to hurt the royal family. I think, in a weird way, Harry's worse than Andrew. He's actually worse than Andrew. Andrew has been bad because of his libido. He's highly libidinous. 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 Right. Guys, you see, this is why we struggle to progress with the storylines in the show, is you interrupt me with your remarks and with your singing request. This is not a music show. This is not MTV. It is the Mark Dolan show. It's MDTV. You're welcome. Just a matter of time before we launch the MDTV network, by the way, which will be the #1 network in the world. So, this is fascinating. The talks are ongoing. A source told the Telegraph newspaper, Prince Andrew has been told the era of indulgence is over. The lease might protect him on paper at the Royal Lodge, but the King's patience is exhausted. He might have signed the deal. He might have handed the money over. What's fascinating, though, is that Andrew pumped a lot of money into Royal Lodge when he moved in. Millions and millions and millions. And he's got a contract, right, until 2028. I mean, he's actually got the property till long after he dies. But it could be that King Charles will have to write a check for $5 or $6 or $7 million just to get Andrew out. So whatever happens, right, it's been very emotionally shattering for Charles. But it could be very, very expensive as well. And the truth is that I think it would be money well spent. I think Charles writes a check. Andrew gets Frogmore. I think Sarah gets just another kind of little, granny flat somewhere on the Windsor estate. And all is good to the world, and we can all get on with our lives, because it's time for the monarchy to start doing what it does again. Opening hospital wings and demonstrating soft diplomatic power. For the King and the Prince of Wales to shake hands with presidents. And for Andrew just to chill out, watching TV, probably Babe Station, I would have thought was one of his favourite channels. I would have thought. And watching, pop videos featuring the Spice Girls and Girls Aloud and Taylor Swift. Andrew probably, I love Taylor Swift. Has anyone got a number for Taylor Swift? Oh, let me WhatsApp her. Oh, she's really good. I'll send her a selfie. Oh. But they're going to have to just accept that it's over and that they're going to have a humble existence living in accommodation which is within the boundaries of the royal estate, but humble enough that the public are not absolutely furious. One interesting thing, by the way, one writer at the Mail, and I can't disagree, suggests that Catherine, Princess Catherine and Princess of Wales, is one of the big reasons why Andrew and Fergie are going to be chucked out of the Forest Lodge. And this is a suggestion, right? Because what's happening is that William and Catherine are moving into their new house. It's so complicated, isn't it? The Forest Lodge. They want to get in there before bonfire night, which is days away, using the autumn half-term school break to settle George, Charlotte and Louis. A royal insider told the Mail on Sunday, Catherine can't imagine moving in while Andrew is still next door. William wants this sorted before they arrive. It's not about what Andrew wants anymore. It's about what the palace has decided must happen. And you see, that's the truth. You can mess around with King Charles all you like, because he's a completely spineless man. I like him. I love him. I wish him well in his battle against cancer. I think he's a decent king. But he's got no ballast whatsoever. No backbone. He's irredeemably weak. He's such a weak personality, King Charles, which is why he's allowed Harry to become such a terrible, terrible monster. bear with me, that's the plumber. Hold fire. This is important before we wrap up the show. Well, that was the plumber. I'm having quite excited, really. They put a boiler in because the old one broke, and I'm going to be able to turn radiators on with my smartphone. Welcome to the future. Right, so, very nice man. Eastern European. Good work ethic. Right, so I'm out of breath now, but let's get on with this. So, you can mess with Charles all you like, but you don't mess with William and Catherine. Catherine is a moral person, and she's a toughie. She might be sort of like an English rose, a delicate flower on the outside, but she's got character, and she's got a moral makeup to her. You know, she's a woman of faith, she's a woman of conviction, and it's not been that easy with the hideous Cold War with Meghan, and she got through it all. And she's battled cancer successfully. She's an amazing mother to 3 children. She's a loyal and caring wife to William, who, let me tell you, back in the day was no angel. Because William, like all of the Mountbatten Windsors, loves a lady and has the roving eye. And she managed to tame him. Because he was and is a tough dog to keep on the porch. And Catherine's done it. So you don't mess with Catherine, and you don't mess with William, who's a strong, intelligent man with an emotional ring of steel. And so the bottom line is, I think that this situation with Andrew will be resolved. I think he'll get Frogmore. Sarah will get something else. Sarah won't write a book. Andrew won't write a book. And the pressure comes not just from Charles, who wants this sorted, but from William and Catherine, who will help close the deal so that the royal family can finally, which we're all desperate to, finally move on. Well, listen, I never want to move on with you because it's been great chatting today. Cannot wait for tomorrow's show. I'm actually sitting on quite an explosive story, which may well be revealed tomorrow. So tune in for that. Don't miss the action. Please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell, the emergency bell for emergency videos, which are coming thick and fast at the moment. And stay awesome. Love your work. Let me know everything you think about the show. Let me know what you love. Let me know what you don't love in the comments. Because the comments aren't part of the show. They are the show. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now. Big love. Love hurts so much. Love leaves a scar. I don't love you is like a stick being driven through your heart. I don't care. I came back for you. Love is cruel, but I don't care. I wanted you. Baby, I'm cold. Cold.